Governor Greg Abbott has pardoned Daniel Perry, a former U.S. Army sergeant convicted of killing a Black Lives Matter protester in Austin back in 2020. That is 20-year-old former mechanic in the U.S. Air Force, Garrett Foster. Now, he had been advised by the parole board to do so, and he has done it. Now, bear in mind, the state board of pardons and paroles, that board, they were all appointed by him. So when he talks about like taking their recommendation, the recommendation was really from him to them, not them to him. If they want their position, they need to do this. But I want to remind everyone of this case because sometimes pardons make sense. This one has never made any actual sense except political sense for right-wingers who love the idea of political violence and like the idea that people that they disagree with might occasionally be shot. And so here's what Greg Abbott said in response to doing the pardon. Texas has one of the strongest stand your ground laws of self-defense that cannot be nullified by a jury or a progressive district attorney. I thank the board for its thorough investigation. We'll get to how thorough it was. And I approve their pardon recommendation. So that you could almost read as, you know what, we have a law, they did the investigation, and this is the result. But I want to remind you of what he said last year. In April 2023, he said, I look forward to approving the board's pardon recommendation as soon as it hits my desk. That is not a neutral party to this. He wants to pardon the guy. And wait until you find out, if you're not familiar with this story, about what he did. So here's the basic details. Mr. Perry was an active duty US Army sergeant on the night of July 25th back in 2020. He was working as an Uber driver in downtown Austin and drove toward a crowd of demonstrators. Okay, that was a choice that he made. It's gonna be consequential. It was there that a group of people that included Mr. Foster, the slain, approached Mr. Perry's car, wore a bandana on his face and carried an AK-47 style rifle on a strap in front of him, which the right tells us is the most patriotic thing that you can possibly do. Mr. Perry's lawyer said Mr. Foster had begun pointing his weapon, and it was then that Mr. Perry opened fire. So his attorneys argued self-defense. Despite the fact that he went to that protest and he was armed, that was a choice that he made. That's not the worst part of this, okay? So here is what was revealed during the trial. Prosecutors displayed text messages and social media comments showing that he had thought preemptively about killing the protesters. Quote, I might have to kill a few people on my way to work. They are rioting outside my apartment complex, he wrote to a friend. Quote, I might go to Dallas to shoot looters. He also encouraged violence in a variety of social media posts. So self-defense is such an interesting term, okay? The way they use it as, you had to do it. He was so scared a guy was pointing his gun at him. But we know that on his mind, he liked the idea of killing protesters. He decided to drive into the protesters, and as soon as they got around him, he pulled out his gun and he shot the guy. And the interesting hypothetical that I always have is, so he is justified to shoot Foster because Foster has a gun. So when he pulls out his gun to shoot Foster because Foster has a gun, does Foster get to shoot him because Perry has a gun? And if he did, is that self-defense? It seems pretty open and shut there. Now, obviously, politically might be a little bit difficult for Greg Abbott, but this is, I think, the final nail in the coffin of any of these arguments about stand your ground and self-defense and all that. It is a tool used to allow people they like to kill people they don't like. That's all it is. That's all it's ever been. Even when they go out of their way to tell people, I want to kill people, I want to kill people, I want to kill people. Oh, I just killed someone because I was really scared and that's the only reason. And it just sucks. Look, I know, it's as the worst part is obviously is that a person lost their lives for protesting, exercising a right that the right in America used to say that they cared about, the First Amendment. And the Second Amendment is considered so much more important, so much more crucial, as long as you have the right political opinions. Brett, what do you think?
So let me answer your hypothetical about what happens in Texas when one person pulls out a gun and the other person pulls out a gun. Who is allowed to shoot who? The answer is everybody, but it doesn't happen because everyone in Texas comes to a sexual climax at that point. Because that's what they live for in that state. Let's just shoot each other with guns. It's perverted. Just as perverted as the miscarriage against justice, where Abbott himself says to you, the human being who can think for themselves, who has basic cognitive functioning, and he tells you that we shouldn't let the law and a trial by jury of your peers stand in the way of what I, the tyrant governor of Texas, want to do anyway? That's what he's saying. And for all of these people that are on the Republican side of the aisle that pretend that it's these weird commies who are going to ruin and destroy America, let me just tell you that this guy just showed up and said, I don't care about what the judge, the jury said about the executioner. I'm better than that. I decide. Now, the system is set up for him to be allowed to do that. But usually they give you some kind of better justification than I know the law better than everybody in charge knowing and executing the law. A jury of peers in Texas was like, oh, the guy said he wanted to go kill people, and so he went and then he killed people. It's insane.
I'm not a lawyer and I'm not a judge, obviously. It should not be self-defense if you go out of your way to put yourself in a position where you can claim that you're scared and you have to kill someone. And that is true for him. It's true for Kyle Rittenhouse. When you try to create a situation where you can then justify murder, that's a loophole that's been established for right-wingers. That's all that is. And by the way, I'm gonna tie this to another story we talked about earlier. So you have, where's the comment? The Marjorie Greene talked about, oh yeah. The Democrats are the same people who voted to kill unborn babies up until the day of birth, which isn't true. And they would march us all in front of a firing squad if they could. Which is obviously ironic because most Democrats want capital punishment to literally be bad. So they will always claim the left wants to kill us. So nobody has even claimed that. Nobody's trying to kill Donald Trump. It's literally never happened. They took this guy who had said, I want to kill protesters. And they have raised him up as their avatar. Tucker Carlson is maybe responsible for this. He was the one advocating for Abbott to do this initially. And so they can take a person who said, I just want to kill protesters, and that's what he did, and he's awesome. He's great, okay? Tom Cotton can go on TV and say, kill protesters if they get in your way. Throw them off the Golden Gate Bridge into the bay. Like, she can claim with no evidence that the left wants to hurt the right. The right is screaming as loud as they can that they want you to kill lefties. And nothing happens except more states passing laws that justify it. They literally pass laws saying if somebody blocks a road, you can run them down. You can kill them with your car if you're inconvenienced on your way to work. No clarification yet on if the person in the street has an AK-47, if they can shoot you in the head if you start to gun your engine. And I'll remind everyone that the protesters around Perry were saying that he was trying to hurt them with his car. So again, like, this is not a tenable situation. The Supreme Court exists to stop things like this. And they of course are not choosing to because they are part of the movement that is advocating for the political violence.
And at least after this,
quick final point.
At least after this, they're all gonna shut up about Ashley Babbitt. I'm certain.
Yeah, definitely.
Someone who 100%. Went at a police officer who then shot her because in very similar circumstances, I guess, except for the fact that that police officer was like, I'm just going to work today. And the police I'm gonna go shoot a bunch of people today.
They were repeatedly saying to back off. And instead the MAGA World War Z'd themselves through the door. Members make a difference here at TYT. You help make the show happen, and we see you in the chat with your loyalty badge. Click the join button to become a member today.